Hi, my name is Gia Hamilton, and thank you for joining me for Live Your Purpose Artfully, a video series that looks at creatives and innovators who are living, working, and visiting the city of New Orleans. So I know you, Co, as my tattoo artist, and I feel like people are very possessive of their tattoo artists. When you find someone good that you connect with, they kind of become yours. So I have this beautiful sleeve, half sleeve that you've been working on. But I also know you in the contemporary art space, just as an artist, as a visual artist, someone who's constantly using lots of different ways to communicate visually. New Orleans, born and bred. Yes.
Charity Hospital.
Charity Hospital. That's where my grandmother was a nurse at Charity Hospital. You're also the founder of Axiom Gallery in Ferret. And you guys, every year you produce this, what feels to me like a fairly large event that has grown year after year called Art Madness. Yeah,
it's a art show that happened, I believe the first year was 2014. And the first 2 years it started as an art show. We would just do collective shows, just with the five of us at the time. But, you know, we just saw a space for it to turn into something big because in the city, it's not a lot of festivals that's based solely around art. So, you know, when you're in Jazz Fest, you know, music festivals, the food festivals, it seems like art is just decoration to those things. So we wanted to start a festival that was centered around the art and have everything else to kind of complement that. So
yes, thank you for that. Yes, because I agree with you. I think people know New Orleans for food, for music, for the kind of experiences that they have, but not necessarily for like the visuals. And this is a city where color, texture, the architecture, just the way people dress, just it's a colorful city. I noticed when you came in that you had on some gold sneakers.
Yeah.
Tell me about the gold sneakers.
Air Max 97s.
Wait, what are they?
Air Max 97s.
Okay, Air Max 97s.
They came out in 1997, so it's like when Michael Jackson, he ran track in the 96 Olympics in Atlanta. And his shoes that he ran in some gold Nike cleats. So me, you know, as a younger boy, I was just like fascinated by that whole thing. Like he would have gold shoes on, you know. So,
yes.
Decades later, I'm still stuck on it.
Dipped in Gucci and gold. You know, it's funny because like when we were talking earlier and you pointed it out, I thought instantly about like your color palette, which is this super bold color palette where I think you're such a colorist and you're always thinking about the way that you know, just different shades fit together, but in these ways that it, like color is able to stay pretty pronounced and singular, but it also interacts. And so I'm always curious, especially with visual artists, with painters, you know, how do you develop your color palette? Like where is that sensibility coming from?
All right, now a lot of people look at it, and I understand how people perceive it from the outside, but like in my mind, I understand color because I come from graffiti background. I used to write graffiti and just do a lot of pieces and stuff like that. But realistically, the colors come from almost like having a sampler type palette. Like I know my 4 or 5 colors that I zone in on, but I mix so much because, you know, paint is expensive. So rather me buying 10 colors, 10 tubes of the same color, I would buy 1 of each color. Then I started trying to make those work. So instead of using complementary colors, I would just use colors almost of the same tone so I could kind of spread it as thin as I could and use all my colors. So eventually that just kind of turned into the style. Even with my scrap spray cans, if I use, you know, all of these reds, and it's just, the cans is $10 a piece. So I still have oranges left, I still have pinks left. I stopped using it like that. I just use each thing to kind of complement each other. So it almost started like kind of budgeting my way through it and it developed into the style that I just use.
Yeah, like out of necessity. Yes, the quintessential artist dilemma, right? Like how to make art and have materials that are affordable. I mean, I noticed, so like for my, you know, for my sleeve, you and I, we talked about a lot about line, and we talked a lot about sort of symbols and iconography that I was really interested in. But then it's felt really collaborative to me. You then were like, let's try some color, you know, let's see. And I feel like you thought very much about like my skin tones, what would look good over time. Is that also something that you're thinking about when you're painting? Like, do those two practices have anything to do with each other?
It's one practice to me. It's
yeah.
I don't separate it. I know it's easy to kind of understand and process things by labeling it. It makes it easy to remember. But for me, I generally know how I feel about my art, so I don't think about it in terms of like a step-by-step process. Like if something feels good, then I would just do it. It's easy for me to speak about it afterwards, but in a moment, I just pretty much just do what feels good to me.
Yeah. And some of the work, I mean, again, like on my arm, is very representational. I think as a native of New Orleans, in your work, there are just clear identifiers of like New Orleans. What does that mean to you? Like, what are you picking up on? What are you working through in those paintings?
Pretty much, like I said, that goes about feeling too, but lately I've been putting a lot more thought into it where when people have the ideas of what New Orleans is to them, but I like celebrating the day-to-day people, like your auntie who you might overlook, or your grandmother who knows more than anybody else who, you know, she could be a tour guide of her own.
Yeah.
I like celebrating those people and people who represent those people, like day-to-day life, like celebrating the everyday life of the city instead of, you know, like festival life or trying to attract tourists or Mardi Gras, you know, just the things that happen every day that I feel I connect with people in that sense, because before I started focusing on it, I felt like that was missing, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just, it's like people put, like the city is identified, it's so many different cultures, but like I said, I just try to catch them now in the everyday.
You know, it's interesting because New Orleans is changing so rapidly. What's your response to the changes that are happening?
I think about that every day as far as, you know, I'm one of the people who's not happy about it. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I understand things get better, but I wish things could have got better for us. I feel like the people who come in, things are already good for them. It's just our culture is just like a bonus. It's like some seasoning to their life. It's not, I don't think, like I understand wanting to experience something, you know, you move somewhere because you like it, but when the whole system changes and then the very reason that attracted you to a place, those things are getting pushed out, you know, or sold as a commodity. Like I don't like that part, because, you know, by me being a native, it's like the things that I love and know, like everything I know is changing right before my eyes, to the point where it almost make me sad. Like I feel like my own history is being erased. Like every school I ever went to in my life is closed now. Like I can't go back and visit teachers or see old pictures and stuff like that. I don't think, you know, that's the weird part about it to me. I just feel like my whole childhood and life is just slowly being erased, and I can't really do much about it.
You know, I want to take a minute because, you know, in many ways, when I came back home in 2008, I felt similar in that things were unrecognizable to me. The city had a different feel, and I kind of anchored myself in knowing that I needed to engage with the city in a different way, like with a lot more care and with just a greater awareness some of the things that I had taken for granted as a child, you know?
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I think those of us who have kind of taken on leadership, and certainly you, are by like activating different spaces. And so you opened Axiom Gallery on Ferret. And I want you to talk a little bit about like what Ferret used to look like and what it looks like now and why it's so important for Axiom to be on Ferret.
At the time when we opened Axiom, it was a bunch of partners, but we split ways because of business reasons. But I pretty much run it alone now, you know. But the gallery's been open since 2014, so it's like I'm an eyewitness to how things change.
Yeah.
It's like I almost watch every business be an abandoned building or another business. Then it turned into something else, which made the street more popular. Like it's harder to park at some nights, you know. It's interesting. It's like, you know, everything and that's a short amount of time. I remember Ferret when I was younger, like I was like 89 when I was like a young boy. So just seeing it like that, like I have memories when things was just abandoned. It was just bars and lounges, like old school lounges where, you know, the older people are like chill, but it's like a complete 180 because it's still bars, but it's like trendy, you know, type of drink spots. It was just like hip kind of spots.
Yeah.
You know, not real cultural. Like you don't get the same people. You don't get the people from the neighborhood. It's different.
Yeah.
Like a lot different.
So let me ask, how do you think your space is activated in that neighborhood now? Like, are people curious about it? Do people come in and support? Are they, you know, coming to shows? Or do you see, you know, something else happen? Do you feel separated or more isolated?
I don't feel separated. Like I'm saying, by being me now, I'm developing a space into something that's more interactive. So I've been working with younger artists too, just kind of, because, you know, the younger artists have a lot more get up and go. I feel like I'm pretty much established. Like I've committed to the things that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm not that adventurous anymore, trying to find out. So I just, you know, connect with the younger artists.
Are you an old head? You think you're old head? Yeah. Not quite.
I'm not comfortable with that term. I'm like a medium head.
Medium head. Okay.
But it's just, you know, just kind of, I just want to be an example to younger, like the example that I feel a lot of us didn't have. The same way people saw things in us when we were younger, I feel like I'm at that transitional stage where I can see the same things. It's almost like, you know, like, but when you're young, you don't really know because you're still trying to figure it out. But like now, I host art night on Mondays, like just small, like real intimate type things where, you know, a lot of us are pretty much face to face. Like I'm in a developmental stage where I can make things more accessible to the public. But for now, it's like the younger artists around me who I can like see. Because I don't move much. I'm pretty much in a 3-block radius.
You're like that center and it all, I know that feeling, for sure.
It just helps me stay on track, you know.
Yeah.
I really bounce 1 minute from each spot.
So okay, so you don't move. You stay in a 3-block radius, so now everybody knows where to find you. But your work definitely moves. I mean, I think about the murals, the one that's in the 8th Ward. I love that you represented the 8th Ward. What made you choose that particular image, and can you describe that image for people who haven't seen it?
It's just a young girl. It's like the slang we use is teeted. Like teeted is just like a general term for like a girl of a certain age, a young woman. So just the 90s, like, you know, my older cousins, you know, my grandmother, my auntie, like my dad, you know, the gold teeth was like a real popular thing back then. And it's the easiest way to kind of identify with that. So historically, that's the easiest place for me to reach because I literally have to do nothing. It all comes from memory and experiences. So just watching how the city is celebrated, the Louis Armstrong era, the 20s, 30s jazz and 50s, 60s, I feel like I'm one of those artists now who can kind of lock in our history. So I know it's the 90s is not that far away, but to somebody, it's not far away from my memory. But as far as the images that people see, I think in the inner city part, I think it's taken for granted because that's a part of history now. Like we don't even live like that now. So I just like looking back on it and kind of reflecting on it because, like I said, I think people take it for granted to the point they see it and they be like, "What do you do?"
Yeah. And I mean, so clearly, your work is dealing with identity and memory and and place very specifically. And, I think you and I have had some conversations about like these terms that get thrown around. I mean, street artists, or I even asked, like, with some of the bold colors, with a lot of the like repetition of certain shapes and kind of sacred geometry references. I'm curious about if you identify as an Afrofuturist or what your relationship is to these terms that get thrown out.
All right. Generally, I kind of stay away from the labels part because I feel like people who are involved with art, but it's like you need a way to categorize something to market it to another group of people. I don't ever want to fit into those things, so I just avoid the labels altogether. But I'm not, I hear the term Afrofuturism. I'm not, I'm kind of ignorant to the term. Like, I get the context of it, but I don't know where it comes from. But I do identify with some of the stuff, so, I don't avoid that. I just don't know enough. It's almost like, I don't know, I'm still kind of filling out, like my style is developing, so if I ever do identify with something, I'll probably put a label on it.
Yeah. So in just taking that concept of futurism, not even Afrofuturisms, but and thinking about how your work holds memory, what do you think in terms of like Black possibilities? Like, what does that look like? And how might that show up in your work if it's important to you?
I mean, I'm Black, so it's just easiest for me to, like, I like that. That's another label. Like, I want people to appreciate my work because they like it. You know what I'm saying? I know I'm Black. I love everything about being Black, but I want people, Black people, white people, before you, it's almost like let's say if you're looking at a menu and then you looking for certain things, it's almost like you don't go into the details until you find a subtopic or a certain category. I feel like I'm one of those people. I look at everything on the menu. Like, I want to read through. I like ingredients. Like, I want to see what's in it. I don't ever want people to support me or not support me based on how my work is made.
Yeah.
I'd rather them experience the work.
Yeah.
I'm Black.
You're clear. Yeah. You're clear.
Everything I've ever done, I just think that's so obvious. Like, I love painting my skin tones, just browner skin tone. It's just so natural to me. So I don't even look at it like, oh, you're holding it down with Black people. Like, I'm Black.
So that's so funny because that was going to be part of what I was asking. Like, do you feel like you have to hold it down for
I do.
Black New Orleans? And why is that?
I feel I do, but I don't like saying it.
Yeah.
I don't ever want that to seem like that's my mission. I don't want it to be that obvious as far as let me word this carefully. I don't want to do my work based on how I feel about the representation. I know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather my work speak and then people see that and just be inspired by it. I don't want how I'm coming to distract you from what I'm doing.
Yeah, so you're not combating anything necessarily. You're just trying to hold space and exist.
I want to represent like pure representation, not it's because it could turn some people off. Like I'm not at that point in my career yet. I want to fully understand what it is I'm doing before I ever get combative about anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose on the front line by being ignorant.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm still in that developmental space where I want to make sure I understand everything that I'm doing before like taking a frontline approach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still training. I see that.
So, man, I feel like we're in sync. You're just leading me into my next question. Your style is a very distinct style. So much so, I hate to keep going back to the tattoo, but I get to wear some of your art on my arm, right? I was at an office building on St. Charles, and the women who were kind of like the host of this particular office building, I went to sign in, and someone was like, "Is that Coe?" And I was like, "Wow, yes." It was like 8:30 in the morning. I was wiping sleep from my eyes, and I was just fascinated by this idea that like it's such a distinguishable style. What lineage do you feel like you're a part of? Like, were there teachers? Are there people? Were you always just a kid who liked to draw and you just had that natural talent, or have there also been other experiences that helped to shape and form your style?
That's a layered question. First, I don't come from a lineage of artists. It was always just me. Like my parents, they'll tell you that. It's just I didn't even realize like being an artist was a thing or a big deal until I was like 9 years old. Like, It was so natural to me. I thought everybody knew how to do that. Like I didn't think it was until teachers started paying attention, good and bad. But I mean, not doing work, but I'm drawing on everything. And then the teachers who saw that I was talented or something, they'll tell my mom. They put me in talented in visual arts, and then 10th and 11th grade, I went to NOCA.
Shout out to NOCA. And what other high school?
I went to Reed.
Yeah, see? So, all right, we shouting out old school New Orleans.
So I went to Reed, But it's just, I feel like, this backtracking a little bit. I think visual artists are just people who focus on the detail of anything. Like, I feel like musically, I could have been just as successful. I could have been a poet. I could have been a writer. Because an artist is just a person who observes details and knows how to represent those details. So, like technique, those things are learned, but the approach is something that I don't feel can be taught. So when you like so deep in artistry, when you get good at techniques, and then you perceive things a certain way, and then you know how to represent those things, it almost becomes like a game. Like, what else can I do to kind of blanket my art out? It's almost like some pieces I know how to provoke certain people. Some pieces I know how to connect to the deeper thinkers. So, like, I hate going that deep into the marketing side of it, but it's necessary. I understand that now, but I used to avoid all of that, because I just wanted to be an expressive person. And whoever like it, whoever don't. But I feel I'm so comfortable in developing into who I will be that it's interesting to watch my work affect this person this way. And then I purposely thought of it because, before I wouldn't know until somebody approaches me and asks me what I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
So if I do this next time, if I do this next time, and then I get the same reaction from another person, it's almost like, okay, now I understand. It's just those things become interesting. I don't do it often, but I do throw things out there just to see if it comes back.
You do it enough, yeah. So you're developing, ever-growing, learning, but with some confidence around like what you're putting out in the world, and like what that means to you, but also what it means to other people. If resources were not an obstacle at all, if you had everything that you needed at your disposal, what would you do with that? What would you want to create? What would you make? What experience would you want to be out there in the world?
I think I would. See, that's something I have to think about, because I feel like I'm doing what I want to already.
Yeah.
Based on the resources that I have, I think I would just do it on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
Like the same people I reach out to paint murals on their property, I feel like I would just buy the property and then I would do what I want on it. In every some type of anchoring property in every neighborhood, something would be up. And I would just put it up. I wouldn't even sign it all, just something to represent, because everybody loves art, but everybody doesn't engage art enough to like walk into a gallery. Like the most you may see is like a painting in a restaurant, a hotel, but people don't realize these things are everywhere. Like you can find, different people that you like, different styles that you like, and just hire a team, just other people. Like I would just bring everybody in just to kind of make it more accessible, especially through murals, because I think that's the most public art that you could get. It doesn't cost you anything to to see it. That's why I do a lot of murals, because I sell. Like I hate the fact that I sell art to people in that sense. Mm-hmm. But I like putting art up publicly. It only costs you when you want to own it. Like if you feel that personally, like you want to own it, then yes, I'll sell it to you. But I would much rather be doing like public space type of murals and such. Yeah.
Okay. So so really land and property and just making it more accessible to everybody. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even though I'm a career artist, to this day, it's still weird to me that art can be trendy to a sense. Like I don't understand that part of it. Well, I do, but I don't know. I don't really feel that part of it. But
it's so complicated.
Yeah, it is. I think I don't know. It's just systems make it complicated, so they can benefit off it more. So it's the weirdest. Like I don't like exchange. It's like the people who create the work almost benefit the least.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, you were talking earlier about purpose, and I think that's a lot of my purpose is really wanting to work with creatives. I mean, as a creative myself, to act as an advocate, because so often that labor, that time and energy and the resources that we put into things, it's consumed at a rate that doesn't always give value back to the person who created it. So there's a real, in my work, I mean, even this series is really very much about just spending moments in time with someone who's putting things out in the world, and really wanting to acknowledge that. Speaking of putting things out into the world, I don't know if we can talk about this yet, but you mentioned a project, Dear New Orleans. Tell me about this project that's coming up.
There's something tentative. I'm working on it, and I've been working on it for some months. It's just like, it's a series that I just want to put out. Is really geared towards the locals and the natives, because I feel everybody else kind of have the idea. I don't think they're too connected to the stuff that I'm about to put up, but I'm doing this because it's like, as things change, I chose the name Dear New Orleans because the work now that I'm doing is almost like a letter to the people who are here now and who was here before, to the point where it's just almost like looking through a photo album. It's just things, real nostalgic stuff. Like I said, I like celebrating the everyday people, the everyday life. And I just chose that as if it's like a visual letter to who we are as people, you know, and in the real sense of what we know. Not saying that the stuff that's happening now is not real, but it's not based in something that we like grew up with. I just feel like it's all created to kind of fit, you know, what's going on right now, like a lot of trendy stuff. I'm not embracing the trendy side of New Orleans. It's just like I say, the everyday people, the everyday things that we take for granted.
I want to just thank you for speaking so candidly about your experience. I'm hoping more to come. Dear New Orleans, I'm hoping that your work outside of New Orleans manifests and that you'll share it with me so that I can put it out there into the world and really help promote. And where and when will we be able to see this Dear New Orleans show?
Tentatively, it's October, and that'll be at Axiom Gallery. Because over the months, there's been a lot of like renovations and stuff, so I want to reintroduce the space, you know, as it is now. Because, like I said, it'll be a lot more interactive. So October is the tentative date, curated by Jay Myers.
Excellent. Okay, shout out to Jay Myers. Okay, thank you.